Welcome, everyone. We're diving deep today into a story we all know, creation as told in Genesis 1.125. But we're going further than just the Bible verses. We've got articles, commentaries, the whole shebang to see how this text has been taught, like across history.
Yeah, it's so cool how Genesis wasn't written in isolation. The ancient Near East had such different ideas about the cosmos, about the divine.
Right, so Genesis is like jumping right into that conversation. How does it challenge those ancient ideas from the very beginning?
Well, you got to start with that famous line, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." Sounds straightforward, right?
Sure, yeah.
But back then, many cultures thought, like, heavens and earth were separate, ruled by different gods even.
Oh, wow, like a cosmic tug of war.
Exactly. But Genesis 1.1 says, nope, one God created it all. It's putting his authority right there, front and center, in the very first verse.
That's huge, especially for that time. So one God, one universe. But then verse 2 describes the earth as without form and void. It uses that Hebrew term, tohu vabohu, right?
Yeah, tohu vabohu. Now, it might sound like just an empty space, but it's way more than that. It's describing chaos, like the opposite of order and design.
So not just empty, but chaotic.
Right, like imagine your junk drawer, but, cosmic scale.
Okay, I'm getting the picture. So God isn't starting with a blank canvas. It's more like a cosmic mess he has to work with.
Exactly. So it's even more amazing what God does next. It's not just creating something from nothing, it's bringing order out of that chaos.
Okay, that sets the stage. Now let's get into the 7 days. Day 1, light. God creates light before the sun and stars. Now that seems a bit counterintuitive, right? Where did that first light come from?
That's a question that's kept scholars busy for centuries, literally. Some think it's divine radiance straight from God. Others say, well, maybe it's light we don't even scientifically understand yet.
Makes you think even today we're finding out new stuff about light, energy. What seemed impossible a while ago is now just science.
For sure. But no matter the source, one thing's clear. Separating light from darkness, that marks the beginning of time. It's the foundation for the whole creation week.
Day 2 then, the expanse. God separates the waters above from the waters below. I've always wondered about this, the word rakia, often translated as firmament, which some people see as like a solid dome holding back water above the earth. Is that really what the Bible's saying here?
It's tricky. The Bible uses the language of its time, right? The ancient Near East did have this idea of a solid dome. But it doesn't mean the Bible's endorsing that as like the scientific model. It's more about the theological truth it's getting across.
Okay, so more about separating realms, God's power over elements, not a literal blueprint of the universe.
Exactly. It's God bringing order to what was initially formless and void, remember?
Right. Day 3, things get a little more familiar. Dry land appears. God creates vegetation, plants, trees, the whole deal. It's like an explosion of life.
Now, purely scientifically, you might ask, hold on, plants before the sun. Photosynthesis needs sunlight.
Yeah. It's like putting the cart before the horse. How do we square that with the text?
A few possible ways to look at it. Maybe the time between light and sun was super short. Or maybe that initial light from day 1, it was enough for plant life. Or, we got to admit, God's creative power might be beyond what we get scientifically, at least now.
That's what I find so interesting about this. Our human understanding is limited. There's always more to learn, more mysteries.
Absolutely. And that's part of why studying Genesis is so cool.
On day 4, then, God finally creates the sun, moon, and stars. It's like he decided, okay, time for a lighting upgrade.
And what's really striking is the sun and moon, they don't even get names in the text. In the ancient Near East, they were often worshipped as gods. Genesis is intentionally downplaying their importance.
Like saying, hey, these are creations, not deities. Makes you wonder, what modern-day gods would Genesis be challenging if it were written today?
Ooh, good question.
Yeah.
That's something for us all to think about.
All right, day 5 brings us sea creatures and birds, lots of them. Oceans and skies just teeming with life.
It's not just creating life, though. It's about making sure it thrives. God blesses them, tells them to be fruitful and multiply. That blessing, it means abundance, growth, life going on and on.
That's a beautiful point. It's highlighting the inherent goodness of creation, right?
Yeah.
And God wanting it to flourish.
Exactly. And that theme of fruitfulness, it continues on day 6 with the land animals.
And of course, the big one, humankind.
What's interesting here is that command, be fruitful and multiply. It's actually phrased more like a blessing, not just a command. It emphasizes how good God's creation is. He's not just ordering things around, it's a gift. the gift of life, and getting to be part of that ongoing creation.
That's a cool nuance. I hadn't thought of it like that. Each day really does tell us more and more about God, his power, his purpose. But it's not just what he creates, right? It's how he does it.
You got it. And that's where we'll pick up next time. We'll look closer at those divine actions, what they reveal about God, and his relationship with the world. It's going to be good.
We just went through like this whole journey of creation day by day. And it hit me that God doesn't just, snap his fingers, boom, it's done. There are all these actions he takes, and each one kind of tells us something new about him, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's amazing. The different verbs in Genesis 1, it's fascinating. It's not just creating, but like shaping, separating, bringing order, the whole thing.
So what are some of those key verbs that stand out, and what do they tell us about God?
Well, we've got to start with creating, right? The Hebrew word is bara, and it's only ever used for divine creation. Humans never do bara.
So there's a fundamental difference between how we make stuff and how God brings something totally new into being. It makes you think about the limits of human creativity,
Right. We build things, invent things, but we're working with what's already here.
Yeah.
Bara is something else entirely. It's a power only God has.
There's this debate about whether Genesis 1 teaches ex nihilo creation, meaning creation out of nothing.
Yeah, Genesis 1.1 doesn't explicitly say out of nothing, but the phrase the heavens and the earth, it's like saying everything. So it does kind of imply that God is the ultimate origin, of all that is.
Yeah. So creating, that's a big one. What else is on that list of divine actions?
Making is another key one. And it's interesting, it's not always used the same way as creating. Like God makes the sun, moon, and stars. Humans can make stuff too, but obviously not on that scale.
What's the difference between, I don't know, baking a cake and conjuring a galaxy?
Exactly. It shows the difference between us and God's power, right? And then you have that image of the Spirit of God hovering over the waters in verse 2. What do you think about that one?
It's always given me the sense of anticipation, like something awesome is about to happen. But it's also a little mysterious, what's the Spirit doing there?
Lots of interpretations. Some see it as this mighty wind, symbolizing God's presence, his power. Others say it's more nurturing, like a mother bird with her nest.
Makes me picture an artist hovering over their canvas, totally absorbed in creating.
Oh, I love that. It suggests care, intentionality, this deep connection between the creator and what he's making.
And then there's God's spoken word throughout Genesis 1. It's so powerful. Let there be light. Let there be an expanse. He just speaks, and it happens.
Yeah, that creative speech, it's a big deal in the Bible. It shows how God is different from creation. He transcends it. He's not part of it. He calls it into being with his word.
It makes me wonder about human language. We write stories, compose music, even shape our own realities with words, in a way. It's obviously not on God's level, but still fascinating.
For sure. But it does point to that shared capacity for creativity, don't you think?
Definitely. And then there's the act of naming. God names the light day, the darkness night. He names the dry land earth, the waters seas. It seems so simple, but it feels really important.
It's about authority, giving identity and purpose. In ancient times, knowing something's name gave you power over it.
So God naming creation, it's like showing he's the ruler, but also a caring provider. He's saying, this is mine, and I'm taking care of it.
I like that. That's a good way to put it. And lastly, there's God evaluating his creation, calling it good. And remember, good here means it's beneficial, it sustains life, it's not just pretty or whatever, it's about purpose.
One of the sources pointed out something I thought was interesting. God evaluates twice, on days 3 and 6, but not on day 2. Why do you think that is?
That's a good one. Some scholars say it's because of what those days are about. Day 3, we get land and vegetation, essential for life. Day 6, that's the creation of humanity. Maybe those are key moments, milestones in the whole process.
Almost like God's pausing and saying, yep, this is good, this is working how I planned.
You got it. And that brings us to a really important point. Genesis isn't just about what God created, but how he did it. And those actions, they tell us deeper truths about God, about his relationship with the world.
Wow. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, haven't we? From ancient cosmology to Hebrew verbs. It's amazing. How much is packed into these first few verses of Genesis?
It really is. And you know what? We've only just scratched the surface. There's always more to discover.
But even with what we've looked at, I'm seeing some big takeaways. For me, it's the power of God's word. Every phrase, every action, it's all building towards something huge.
Yeah, and it ties into that order, That structure of creation is not just random. There's a clear progression, a logic to it. And that speaks to God's wisdom, his planning.
Right. It's so different from those ancient Near Eastern ideas where the world was like chaotic or ruled by chance. Genesis is saying, nope, one God, one plan, everything unfolding the way he intended.
Exactly. It's a powerful statement about God. He's the source of it all, and creation owes him everything.
You know, we talked about how God sees that his creation is good, but it always makes me wonder, if God knows everything, why does he need to see? It's like he's discovering it as he goes.
That is such a good question. It gets into some deep stuff about God's relationship with creation. Is he, in a way, experiencing it? Not just watching from afar, but truly participating.
It makes the whole story so much more dynamic, right? Like there's this back and forth between God and what he's making.
For sure. It challenges us to rethink how we see God in the world. And it leaves us with some big questions to think about, like how does God interact with creation today? What does it mean for us to be part of this amazing thing he created?
I think one of the most important things we can take from Genesis is that creation itself is good, it's purposeful, it gives life, it's something to celebrate, to cherish.
I absolutely agree. And as we explore the world through science, through faith, or just through that sense of awe and wonder, let's remember we're seeing the work of a God who loves and creates.
This deep dive has given me a whole new perspective on the creation story. Thanks for joining us on this journey. And keep exploring, keep asking those big questions. You never know what incredible insights are waiting to be found.